Hello, episode 22. Here we are back from...
Back from what?
Vegas.
Oh, lost wages.
IFA convention rocks. It was really great time. We made some great new connections. I reconnected with some previous great people that I met last year. This was the first IFA. What do you think?
I didn't really know, going into it, what to expect. I would say like the vendor expo was kind of okay. The various networking and just meeting people in general was pretty cool. There was a couple of breakout sessions that were good, some that were okay. I took a class on artificial intelligence that was pretty good, but more so I met a couple people in that class that the connections were probably better than the class, to be honest with you.
The connections was my biggest takeaway also. I did pick up and learn a lot of helpful, useful tips, especially some technical things that we're gonna implement to our website. We're gonna have multi-site for our franchisees so they can write blogs and have more real estate on our website. So that was one great tidbit. Now, I know you were pretty excited about that AI class, and so I'm looking forward. I want to get one of those little robots you were going to make. What is all that? What that is all about?
So there's chatbots that you can create, obviously. I mean, people have seen chatbots everywhere, right? But the power of using a chatbot on your specific website is you can train the chatbot based on the data that it scrapes from your website, right? So, you don't want to necessarily have to tell the chatbot, hey, we're open 8 to 8 every day, right? The chatbot can scrape the website and figure that out.
That's ideal.
It can also look if you have a frequently asked questions section or just a knowledge base in general. Not for, a spa business, there's not necessarily going to be a knowledge base just in general. When I think of a knowledge base, I think of more of like, I'm probably dating myself, Microsoft TechNet. I'm not exactly sure what it's called now, but TechNet is what we still refer to it as. But, a knowledge base that's built that a chatbot can scan and look for clues. The biggest takeaway though from using AI chatbot specifically is you want to let me rephrase that. You want the chatbot to ingest data, right? Ingest the database, just FAQs or whatever, and then you quote unquote talk to the data. So you tell the AI chatbot what you're looking for to have a conversation with, and then it pulls that information.
Is it kind of like ChatGPT? It has like a mind on its own?
Yeah, I mean, any chatbot that you're using these days, whether it's, insert whatever chatbot, 8 out of 10 times it's just ChatGPT under the hood, but a specialized form of ChatGPT, right? One that's using containerized information unless you tell it to go out and pull information from the public internet. But if you have a chatbot, you don't necessarily want it to be able to pull information from the public internet because you don't want it to get confused and you don't want it to confuse your customers. So if you say, what time is the Burlington location open? It might go out to the internet because it's confused and it might just pull some random Burlington, maybe Burlington, Ontario, Burlington, Massachusetts, and spit out, some random time. You can read now there's chatbots that people have been able to negotiate, the price of a vehicle down to $1. I mean, obviously that's not binding, but you want the chatbot to be friendly, to answer easy information, but know when to stop and then just basically say, hey, I don't know, call the desk.
Yeah.
And you want to be very careful that the customers know that they're interacting with a chatbot.
Okay.
So, when they initiate the conversation, it'll say, hey, I'm, so-and-so, I'm a...
Brilliante.
Diamond, I think, is a better name for the chatbot. But, hi, I'm Diamond. I'm a robot. working, for Brilliant Massage and Skin, I'm here to try to help you answer some of your questions. What kind of
Yeah, when can we test drive that one?
So we're still kind of figuring out how we want to move forward with it. There's definitely a cost component of it, so we're trying to see if there's a way to minimize the cost and potentially have, something that obviously is functional, because you don't want just stuff that's not functional on your website, but something that, it's worth the additional spend, because it all adds up at the end of the day.
So how much would we be looking on average? How much would a business would look to spend to get one of those?
It depends, so there's various AI tools out there, right? There's Gemini, there's Meta, there's Copilot, there's ChatGPT, there's Cassidy. So each one, Claude is another one that I was just thinking of, that each one does a very specific task, right? So it depends on what you're looking for. Cassidy, $80 to $100 a month, depending on how much token utilization you're using. ChatGPT, which is probably the most popular just in general, about $20 a month. But you add all these together, it could be a couple $100, but chatbot is just that's the top, right? So that's the most customer facing thing. But would you like to have a bot go out, do competitor research, scrape their website, find key decision makers, kind of dump that into a document, email it to you once a month, and then run that automation every month and have it compare to what it did last month to then give you an update?
So for example, if I wanted it to go out and ask and give me summary of new massage or skincare practitioners that opened in the area, and for example, if I wanted to reach out to them, if they're interested to become a bigger spa and use our systems and processes, is that something that they could do?
Yeah, so a tool like Cassidy, can do competitor analysis, find competitors, scrape their website, look for keywords, and then the most important thing is ideally finding those people on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. And the reason why you want to find key decision makers on social media, LinkedIn or various platforms is, how does that person work, right? Are they a super bubbly, outgoing person? They love to use emojis, or are they very process-driven, methodical thought process? So AI can figure out, for myself, I'm an engineer at the end of the day, give me the requirements and I'll build you something. So it's like, for someone like me, it's like, tell me the facts, what it's going to do. I don't need all the extra marketing stuff. So, tailor an email or a phone call or whatever to someone that wants just the facts. If I'm super outgoing, bubbly, love emojis, love soccer, right? This is the first sport that came into my mind, but, then you can tailor the email or the communication to that person based on what the AI scraping can find.
That's very cool, and I feel like we barely scratching the surface with AI. It could be the best blessing and the curse to some people. Let's hope it's more a blessing than a curse. Yeah. I do believe that.
I utilize AI just in my daily workflow, right? Like I'll use it to kind of check my work, but you have to be really careful. I was doing some things with Sophos earlier today, and there was a couple of things that I was asking ChatGPT just because I was kind of curious what it would come back with. And the first response was like, I'm pretty sure that's not true. And so I said to ChatGPT, are you sure? Literally, I said, are you sure? And it said, actually, no, that was incorrect. It's actually this. And I was like, I still don't think that's right. So I was like, well, I'm going to go and look at the official documentation. It probably took me 5 minutes or so to actually find the official documentation on Sophos' website and find out what the answer is. And so then I said to ChatGPT, hey, I think that this is actually the answer. What do you think? And it said, oh, great, thanks for catching my error. Yeah, now I have a high level of confidence that that's actually the right answer. So you have to be really careful, right? maybe eventually, it will be there. But, a lot of things, especially for IT or consulting, it's based on experience. Different companies, just experience is the biggest thing, that really helps you along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I use ChatGPT too, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. I personally never use it for any information that needs to be extra precise or law abiding that could get me in trouble.
Right.
What I personally use it mostly is for things like correct the grammar, rewrite this text into more friendly tone, because when I type, I tend to be, very to the point. So sometimes I need to give me some ideas how to say this, in a friendlier manner or whatever. So that's not gonna get you in trouble. There's not law.
Yeah, the thing,
binding.
A buddy that actually met at the IFA conference sent me an image on LinkedIn, and it was, some guy sitting at a computer and was like, oh, I just uploaded 10 gigabytes worth of confidential proprietary information so that ChatGPT could write one email. Don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Can you upload quote unquote confidential information? Sort of, right? If it's a boilerplate contract from, say, Canon, just upload it, right? It's not proprietary, it's not secret. If it's proprietary information, like, a spreadsheet from your business, remove, anything that indicates what business it is. A lot of times we see companies kind of sanitize the numbers. So, if that you're working in millions, change it to hundreds, right? AI shouldn't be making financial decisions for you. So, but you can use it. I kind of like, Microsoft's name for it is Copilot. You can kind of use it as that person, the navigator, or someone kind of helping you, another set of eyes.
Or even if you're gonna ask any sort of data that details matter, you gotta know that it is pulled out of internet, and it could be pulled from some random blog that didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
So don't take for as 100% that data.
Yeah, the interesting thing is with DeepSeek, right? That came out maybe a couple months ago, and you can, say you can talk to DeepSeek, hey, answer X, Y, and Z, and it starts thinking, right? Mm-hmm. And you can expand the section of where it's thinking, and it's actually kind of interesting. It's this AI battling with itself. Mm-hmm. It's like I asked it, I don't even remember, design me a sweater or whatever that does this, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see it. It's like, okay, I need to think about a sweater, but, they said that they want it to be a certain color, so I have to keep that in mind. And it's almost like it's battling with itself for a good couple minutes, mm-hmm. and then it kind of spits out an answer. The other thing that I just wanted to say, something at a very simple, there's a stack of business cards here mm-hmm. on Melissa's desk from IFA. Mm-hmm. It's okay, well, what do I do with this, right? Mm-hmm. You come back and it's well, spread it out on the floor, take a bunch of pictures of it with your phone, upload it into ChatGPT. This is now your data in ChatGPT. Start talking to the data. Say, hey, what is Sam from Soundhound? What's his deal? And you can have it go out and look, or on LinkedIn to find him, or just say, hey, I uploaded all these cards, make it into a CSV file that I can upload into Outlook. Yeah.
You can be your little assistant and make your job easier. Things like that it's not critical if there is going to be any errors. So that's something to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. So we expanded a lot on AI here, and actually there was a lot AI connected content on during the IFA. That's the kind of big hot new thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has. It's you're gonna go walk into a public restroom and there's gonna be an AI powered toilet at some point.
Yeah.
It's just it's a little bit and you start talking to a lot of these companies. I can't remember couple of the companies I talked to, and they're like, "Oh, we're AI driven." I'm like, "Oh, really? Like, what's the model under?" And they're like,
it's just like a hot word,
yeah.
like add
Yeah,
to,
well, and it's
so-
like, if you're not necessarily technical and you're looking at two different products, and one is quote unquote AI powered and the other one isn't, which one are you gonna go with?
Yeah, people fall for the keywords.
The shiny new object.
Yeah. Now, so let's bring back to the all good consulting type of doing business. So, but as you may know, I am an emerging franchisor. I am a franchisor first and foremost. We have been in business for 8 years. We're very confident what we have to offer, our systems and processes. But in the franchising world, we're kind of, emerging, whatever. So some people, they want to do consulting. They want to hire me for consulting before they're ready to jump in 2 feet into massage and skincare business. So you've been doing consulting for a while. So
Yeah,
maybe you could share, how does consulting contracts work, and how does the billing work? How does this type of services work?
So the interesting thing, or the biggest thing that I like about consulting is, from an IT perspective, you end up working, we have about 100 clients, 100 businesses that we work with across the United States. So you could be working with a pizza restaurant in the morning, and then you have a call with a law firm, and then you have a retail store, and it's different every day, right?
Well, in your industry,
Yep.
let's say, since you serve many different type of businesses, like some people might have niche consulting, they could
Yep.
do niche consulting, right?
Yeah, so you can do. There's consulting is as old as the world,
Yeah, it's
type
old,
deal.
yeah.
So you have to pick what type of consulting that you want, and then kind of build it out from there. And
So for example, so if clients, they call you or text you, and you're not having not a scheduled 1 hour session, how do you build them?
So if someone reaches out cold, and they say, "Hey, I need this," the first thing is, okay, let's hop on a Zoom call or a Teams call so we can see each other face to face, and have them explain what they're looking for, where they want to go, pain points, kind of like a discovery
See
call.
if it's a good fit.
Yeah, and I always tell clients, hey, if it's a good fit, awesome, let's move forward. If it's not, then it's not. And you know what? If I see you on Church Street, which is our walking outdoor mall, I'll still say hi to you, right? Early on, when I started doing consulting, it was basically the phone would ring. It didn't matter what it was. It'd be yep, sure, yeah. But after a while, you have to kind of focus on what makes sense long term. The one person residential, that doesn't make sense long term, right?
Well, for you.
But a one person shop just looking for consulting might not be willing to pay your hourly fee, or they're so ingrained in their method that they don't want to change, or they quote unquote know better, right?
The fit has to be
it has to be a good fit, and while my background is IT, and that's my primarily what I do, that's my business is IT consulting. You go into these businesses and IT touches so many different things. And I'll use an example of an interior designer that we're working with. And I'm like, okay, just explain your process. How do you folks work? And it's like, oh, well, we do this, this, and this. And it's like, well, why? And the process that was explained, it's like, has nothing to do with really IT. It's just moving data around and using various systems. But it's like, well, why are you doing that process? Why don't you do this? And it's just light bulb goes off on people's heads they never even thought about it. And maybe it's technical, but it's also just using experience that you've gained from other clients as well. And the first hour or two of consulting, especially with a new client, is kind of
getting to know them.
Yeah, it's kind of, maybe pro bono isn't the right word.
But you don't really bill for those?
No, because...
Complimentary.
Well, it's not really complimentary. Is this a good fit? It's like a test drive, Yeah. You go to test drive a Jeep, They're not like, okay, well, where's $500?
Yeah.
Right, and they're going to spend time. It's like looking for a house. You need to make sure it's a good fit, because no one wants a big
You're
bill.
giving them an assessment kind of what would working with your company would look like.
But, and you kind of, after some level of experience, you kind of know, like, okay, these clients are just going to be a nightmare, right? And typically, like, we had a customer email about a week ago with a request for proposals. And so I'm, reading through the RFP, and like, this RFP is so vague that there's no way that I can quote it. And so I respond back, I'm like, hey, I want to make sure that we can accurately quote this. Do you have, just a couple of basic things, like, how many people work in your company? How many computers do you have? Yeah, we don't really know. People kind of come and go. There's, some computers. Maybe what we should do is, have you come in for an assessment. I'm like, okay. You got 5 locations, a couple hundred employees. Like, that's not just like, hey, come in for lunch and do an assessment. That's, days worth of work to really accurately scope that. And you kind of have to, like, is it worth your time to go through and scope that when you might not get the bill, or might not get the job? But if the person that's in charge of the RFP process literally has no clue about their business, and that's going to be your primary contact, it's a business decision at the end of the day. But the decision that I made was it wasn't worth it to pursue it, because it's already set up to fail from the beginning.
So how do you usually, for example, bill your clients? Do you keep a time track? Do you start a timer once you get there and turn it off when it's done, or when they call?
A lot of times I think it's, comes back to, like, if you're a tenant and then you become a landlord, as a landlord, you want to be the landlord you would have as a tenant, right? So if you're a consultant, you want to be the consultant that you would want to work with when you're the business or the employee. So in terms of the way that I bill is, minimum 1 hour when you go on site. If it's local, no big deal for travel, but it's got to be a minimum. And then typically when you're doing remote support, probably about 30-minute chunks. However, if someone emails you and says, hey, I'm wondering, are these business cards valid? Do we still need these? Just as an example. And if the answer is like, no, you're good, you can just throw them away, like, don't bill for that. If someone calls, hey, our internet isn't working. Oh, did you go into the closet and, flip the master on and off switch? Oh, no, I'll go and do that. Okay, it's on, flipped it off, flipped it back on, and it's good. Typically don't charge for that. And the reason is no one wants to get nickeled and dimed, right? But you also don't want to do work for free. But if you kind of be the consultant and not like the Comcast model of just nickel and diming for everything, customers appreciate that. They know that, hey, like, I'm not going to get billed for all of this little stuff, and sometimes it does add up, right? And then if it's like, okay, over the course of 6 months, there's been a million little things, okay, bill for a couple hours, and that just kind of encompasses everything. But, when you go on site, kind of not necessarily start a stopwatch, but, okay, you got there at 5 o'clock and you leave at 6:15. Okay, hour and a half worth of labor. If it's far away, if it's outside the state, then there's travel fees and things of that nature. But it depends on the business too. Some businesses want a monthly bill for cash flow reasons for them. Some businesses that it's kind of a mix. If they're really small, sometimes they just kind of want like a quarterly bill, and that's more because sometimes they do their own books, or they have like a consultant that does their books, so it's like, they don't want to be peppered with invoices. But, with Bill.com now and a lot of this being automated, especially once you build up that repertoire with customers, obviously, like, you don't overcharge people, right? You want to always be able to readily explain your invoices. But, you kind of get into the groove where, it's very predictable. The monthly services are the monthly services. It's basically employees times a certain amount of people. And then you send bills, and for monthly services, we kind of have not necessarily a hard line, but that it needs to be auto-billed, right? They need to have a credit card or a bank account link, because it's not worth anybody's time chasing someone for a $500 services bill every month. And then, for the most part, it's pretty easy. There, you have some clients that are stragglers too, with paying.
So do you charge then the late fees if some people don't pay the bill on time?
It depends, so we did charge a late fee for a client about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the reason why was they were already kind of on thin ice of not paying their other bills, and so I was basically like, look, we got to charge you guys a finance fee, and if this kind of happens again, we're just gonna have to part ways, right? There's got to be that trust in services.
Is there in a contract? Do you write in that hey, the bill has to be paid by this time?
Yeah. So in consulting, you typically do an engagement letter, and the engagement letter kind of outlines the relationship. And in the engagement letter, it says, if invoices are presented, they're due upon presentation, and if they don't pay it, then you're going to add a finance fee.
A 30-day or 90-day?
Well, if bills are due on receipt, give people a couple weeks, right? No one's going to really be getting a bill and then immediately paying it. But if it drags on and on and on and on, then yeah, definitely. But you also, you want to work with people. Sometimes, especially when the relationship is kind of getting going, that's where you want to be a little bit cautious about hey, when are you going to pay your bill? You didn't pay this, you didn't do this, I'm going to add a finance charge, because it just sours the relationship. Mm-hmm. And, when you're working with bigger businesses, it's okay, well, they need someone to submit a new vendor form. Finance needs to create the vendor. It might need to go to a VP for approval. Maybe legal needs to approve the contract. So, the first kind of 3 to 6 months can be kind of a little bit rocky in terms of payment, but you'll know, are they going to pay, right? They're, knock on wood, it's always worked out. And then, think about the relationship too, so if it's been a long-term relationship and, they've brought a lot of business to you, you're working with other businesses, and, you become part of these businesses, right? You're their IT department.
Right.
So if hey, this business, I know that, they're in the process of acquiring a company, right? And that your primary contact is getting 2 hours worth of sleep and his head's going to explode 5 times every day. Next time you talk to them, hey, just, want to make sure, that, got some outstanding invoices. It's typically not malicious that people aren't paying their bills, just in general. It's that, something else has come up.
Yeah, priorities or forgetting. Yep. But yeah, we have to be clear about the expectations and set the expectations at the beginning, have it in the contract, and then both parties.
That's a very good point that I want to make is, regardless of what business, what type you're working with or whoever, you need to have a dedicated, identified point of contact at that business. And I highly, add another highly in there. You don't want that dedicated point of contact to typically be the owner of the business. And I'll tell you why. The owner of the business is busy running the business, right? They're concerned about, work getting done, but they're not really involved in the nuances.
They're not the accountant.
Right. So, typically, the person that's usually our contact is the office manager, general manager, someone that has a direct line to the owner of the business or the principals of the business, but is, kind of just doing the day-to-day office running. And that's very important because there's going to be times when you need a contact to work with support or, figure out whatever. Good luck getting the owner of the company on a Zoom call randomly throughout the day. And you don't really want that. You don't want to waste their time, and you're not really wasting their time, but, figure it out with the office manager. Make sure it's working. Okay, let's go back to the owner. Okay, we figured this out.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. As I am consultant role a little bit here, that was interesting to hear. I am primarily we have our franchise system, and that is what really natural and easy to me at this point. We have set up all our documents, the paperwork, and now we actually, branch it out a little bit into consulting, because I think that's going to be a part of our business model as we are, going to be connecting and talking with people interested to grow bigger, interested to see what it looks like working with us. So that is going to be a cool thing to implement also. So are we gonna go next year to IFA?
I'm on the fence, to be honest with you. It's really geared towards, well, I'm interested to hear what your opinion is, but, in general, that conference is geared towards franchisors in the food industry. Whether or not that's your opinion or not, that was the biggest takeaway that I got it from, is that it's very geared towards franchisors, and specifically franchisors that work in the food industry. So are there other franchisors there and franchisees? 1,000%. There was actually some franchisors and franchisees that I was like, that's even like a concept? Like you can even franchise that? Not only, yes, can you franchise that, they've got like 60 units. So it was kind of, interesting, but, I think it was very heavily food dominated, and kind of fast food dominated or fast casual.
Well, I think because there is the most franchises that are food related franchise out there.
I think when people think of franchise, probably the first thing that comes into their head is McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's, Burger King, KFC.
Yeah.
I don't think people necessarily think about, trying to think of like kind of someone franchised a business about estate sales.
Yeah, I mean.
There's all sorts of different concepts out there, but, at the end of the day, it was kind of like, this is a franchisor conference based around food.
Well, I think it might appear that way just because a lot of big legacy brands did come from food.
Yep.
And, even such as Dunkin' Donuts, like a coffee shop, the big legacy brand, there's a lot of new coffee franchises. Coffee is a very competitive industry, by the way. It's really hard to
Yeah, and I mean, just, look at Dunkin' Donuts. They rebranded as Dunkin'. They don't even, I think they still have donuts, but they're like kind of garbage. But, that opens up.
Well, that's a personal opinion. Just put that out there.
Well, Dunkin', if you're listening, bring back the donuts that I remember from a kid, and I'll be all over it. But
no corn syrup. Yeah.
I think that when these large legacy brands like say Dunkin' Donuts, like they kind of got out of the donut business, which then opened that market to franchises that wanted to specialize in donuts. But you also have to think of America's ever changing. Like obviously people are drinking less soda. Right?
Yeah, but also what my point was that because there is a lot of legacy, rich, wealthy brands that been for decades and decades around, it appears like they're more so on the stage and out there, but there is actually a lot of home care, senior care brands, home services.
Just talking with people, just networking. The vast majority of people that I spoke with were in some sort of food.
But I guess as a supplier for you, you do work with a pizza concept.
As a supplier, I don't care, to be honest with you, what market they're in, because I always say, like, at the end of the day, a spreadsheet's a spreadsheet, right? Well, data is data.
Interesting experience, because I didn't feel at all that most of the people I've spoken to were in the food industry. Maybe because a lot of people that I was speaking to were suppliers that were trying to talk to me, and there were like a lot of tax firms, law firms, software, AI vendors. But talking to other franchisors, there was home services, senior care franchises actually are on the rise because of the aging population. We're going to need a lot of those services. And that also brings me back to wellness and self-care services such as massage. I feel like massage is also together with that I'm not saying it's for old people, not at all. We got young people getting massage and facials and beauty services, especially. It's like young persons, so especially for females. But we are in line a little bit with that, that older people have more disposable income for self-care, for massage and things like that. So I think it's a good sign for if you're looking to get into wellness services that, there's gonna be more seniors out there that is gonna need more and more of these services. And there was home services that I met.
Yeah, there's franchises for everything, right?
Like painting.
Yeah, there's everything, but, that was my, impression, so.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of pizza franchises and wings franchises.
Yeah. Because you have to look at.
And everybody needs to eat, so it's a big population.
Right before COVID, there was, kind of a study done on what the next generation wants from fast food. And specifically looking at McDonald's, and the overwhelming, almost 90% of people said that they want 24-hour breakfast. They would much rather have a breakfast sandwich at 5 o'clock at night than a burger. And you know what? McDonald's listened. Mm-hmm. And they changed it, and they, had 24-hour breakfast, and, things with COVID and, labor shortage and things of that nature have changed. But, that's where you have to listen to consumers. Yeah, you have to change, right?
And I think that's why we are so successful, because we listen to consumers.
Yeah.
We take feedback from our customers very seriously, and that's, I think, what made us better and better throughout the years.
Yeah, and it's hard, with some of these legacy brands, feedback from the customers is clearly important, right? I'm sure McDonald's wants to, and Domino's and whoever wants to know what their customers are thinking and saying. But, when you're 20 layers removed, the decision makers from the customers, by the time that feedback gets up to you, it's so watered down. If it even gets to you,
It did get to McDonald's, to your point, that they made the breakfast.
Yeah, and look at, Domino's, one of the legacy brands that really turned around their entire business. And if you look back, on YouTube at some of their early commercials that they were running, turning around their brand, it was basically they were using transparency and honesty. The CEO was like, we had all of the fast food delivery pizzas come to our office, including Domino's, and he was like, ours was the worst. And he was like, it's hard to say that, but ours was the worst. But this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to fix it. And it's done really well for them. Their stock has done very well.
Well, you have to really analyze and look.
Yeah, and take that hard feedback, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We are going to be in Florida in a couple months here at the TNX Summit. Looking forward to that. We'll make another episode before that, though. And I did go also to Let's Grow franchise assembly trip. That was amazing. I also did blocks, which I don't think we talked about the episode. Maybe next episode we could talk about the blocks experience.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about going to an IT MSSSP conference in Florida in May, I think it is. It's in Orlando, so kind of on the fence. I've heard really good things about it, but it's really close to where my aunt and uncle have a house, so it'll make it a little bit more affordable.
Yeah, well, I'll be in Kansas City in May doing Blocks graduate school, so we have some travel lined up, and I did a lot of travel. We did travel, so stay tuned for next episode. We're gonna talk a little bit more about other great things we picked up along the way, and hope everybody has a great wellness and wealth balance in their life, and keep on pushing, keep on striving for keep on reaching your dreams,
and come back for the next episode.
Yes. Have a brilliant day. If you're interested in any of our offerings, please get in touch. And by the way, this is not financial or medical advice. Always consult your professionals.
Yep. See
Bye.
you later.